Ladies and gentlemen, get ready for an experience like no other. Tune in every Monday at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time for The Mary D. Show, where the ordinary meets the extraordinary. The Mary D. Show brings you powerful insights and inspiring stories from a diverse range of guests. Join our incredible host, Mary D. Welch, as she sits down with thought leaders, business owners, and changemakers, sharing their journeys and successes. From career professionals and entrepreneurs to educators and beauty advisors, Mary D. Welch interviews sports figures and health enthusiasts, offering a platform for extraordinary voices. Explore the world of extraordinary people and places in business and finance, homes and real estate, beauty and wellness, education and empowerment, sports and health, and more. Want to be a guest on the show? Call 619-669-8603 or email Mary at marydwelch.com. Visit www.marydwelch.com to learn more.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Mary D. Show. We are back on another beautiful Monday, and it's always beautiful. No, it rained this weekend, though. I'm going to be honest. It is so rare that it rains here, that when it rains, people, they act like it's raining acid. They really do. They act like, oh my God, it's raining. It's raining. So anyway, it was beautiful. And it's just I'm just happy to be back for another Monday. I'd like to first thank you, our live viewers. Thank you, live viewers. And I thank you, Antonio. Antonio said, hi, Mary, and hi, Albert. And then I'd like to thank you to our replay viewers. Thank you, replay viewers. All of you mean so much, because I have so many people tell me I'm at work, I can't watch you, but I do turn you on in the evening when I get in, and I want to, hear about the guests and what's going on. So I want to thank you. I'd like to also thank our sponsors for today's show. Our Black Business Expo is a sponsor for the show. Those of you familiar with Black Business Expo, we also have First Book Academy. They're sponsors for the show. We also have Front Page Publishing, a sponsor for the show. And if you're not already on the email list, ladies and gentlemen, you want to definitely get on the email list. You can get all the emails that go. Almost forgot. And the last sponsor is the Idea Club. They're a sponsor for the show. And each of those, you can go to their websites. So, ladies and gentlemen, you are really in for a wonderful treat today. We have a wonderful, wonderful lady here that's going to be on the show. And her name is Stephanie Hopkins. I'm going to read you the information about Stephanie because I'm so impressed with this lady. I can tell you right now. Stephanie Hopkins is the CEO and founder of Blaque Street Title, LLC, a boutique social enterprise title agency. Stephanie Hopkins brings over 2 decades of risk management experience across multiple insurance sectors to address the complex nuances of heirs property ownership. By merging strategic risk analysis and community-driven solutions, she breathes new life into debt equity, transforming tangled titles into generational wealth. Think about that. Now, that's, we're all dealing with that as far as tangled. I say we're all. Many people are, due to, it could be all kinds of reasons. And Stephanie's going to go over that with us, because just to do work in title, I was talking to her earlier and I said, I've never really paid attention to title. I know it's important, but I just haven't really focused on it. But let's go on. She holds a bachelor's in healthcare administration and is licensed as both an accredited claims adjuster and title agent. Her knowledge is further supported by certifications in community real estate development, CRED, adult mental health, first aid, and current enrollment in the paralegal specialty program at the University of South Florida, focusing on elder law. A best-selling Amazon author, Stephanie contributed to Money Talks, uncut convention with financial experts on how to grow, leverage, and protect your assets. A financial anthology empowering the biopic community. Her insights have been featured in various podcasts and in Bold Journey magazine. Wow, I like that name, Bold Journey. Stephanie's commitment to community empowerment and generational wealth building is reflected in her collaborative approach. Through strong partnerships and a client-centric mindset, She has earned recognition as a trusted voice in the title and real estate ecosystem. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce to you Stephanie Hopkins. Stephanie,
Hello, hello.
welcome, welcome, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm well. Thank you so much for having me and
Oh,
allowing for me to, grace your audience with my presence.
I'm just, like I said, as I spoke to you earlier, honored because your knowledge is so needed in not just, truthfully, this is not about color. This is about assets.
That is correct.
It's about assets. We can say hi to Antonio before we get going. Antonio's a super fan. Hi, Antonio. Hi, this is one of our super fans, Antonio Human. Hi, Antonio. He said hi to me and Oliver. You need to say hi to Stephanie, Antonio. Well, I want to first start with Stephanie. What does it mean for Blaque Wall Street Title to be a social enterprise title agency? What does that mean?
So what that means, Mary, is Blaque Wall Street Title has a nonprofit arm. So our nonprofit arm, Embracing Life Development, Inc., we offer affordable estate planning to the community.
Wow. Okay. That's wonderful. I'm glad I asked. That so, now do you do workshops? I hope they're by Zoom. Do you do online workshops?
We do. Once we have a sponsor partnerships, we do, and we're also collaborative with some local attorneys as well.
Wow. Now you're in what state?
I'm in Florida.
Okay. Because I have a few, it's funny, that's why I have a granddaughter that lives in Florida and cousins that live in Jacksonville, Fort Myers. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm in Tampa, Florida.
Are you? Okay. Okay. Well, I know too, because the laws change depending on what state you're in, correct?
Each state has their nuances, but there's always a baseline in regards to title and probate.
Well, let me ask you this, and I'm speaking for so audience, you're learning, and I'm still learning too. What when you only need title when you're purchasing property or title search, correct, or title insurance?
So yes, so when you're dealing with real estate, it is recommended to purchase title insurance. Now, if you are financing your home, it will be a requirement from your lender because they want to protect their interest as well as make sure that they have first lien position on the home if anything happens. But if you're buying vacant land,
Mm-hmm.
it's optional. But anytime you are financing, it's normally required.
Okay, I know. That's what I've always, you see it's so much on all that paperwork you see when you purchase. It's almost, to me, I always say you signing your life away. That's what that's what it looked like to me. It's like, good gracious, people. But I know there's reasons for every single form that's on there for sure.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
And I always tell people title insurance is really not an option,
Yeah.
but it's an option, but it's not
Right.
because title insurance gives you the history of the land that that property is sitting on.
Right.
It's a credit report for your house,
Got
right?
it. Got it.
Right. And in Florida, when we search title, we're going back uh, at least 30 years for it to be a marketable title. Lien searches, it goes back from the inception of the property to ensure that there aren't any liens on the house. So those are two vital parts of purchasing a property because you don't want to purchase the property and also purchase someone else's debt as well.
So let's say I'm purchasing a home and I find out there is a lien on that property, how does that work?
So let's say you purchased a home as you stated, and
Mhm.
there's a lien on there, then the title agent will work with the lien holder to get that cleared. And sometimes we have to pay it from the proceeds prior to actually issuing out the final payments. So we
Oh,
may, try to negotiate the debt down depending on what it is. Some debts are negotiable and some are just what they are. And then they get paid out as a part of the sale.
I see.
Hmm.
I tell you, because like I said, I've seen the paperwork to the point I'm like, is this all? I know it is, by the way. And I know really what it is to protect the seller and the buyer. I think it's to protect both of us.
Well, it's actually a buyer's product, and it all depends on what county you're in, who selects the title agency, right?
Mm-hmm.
But title, all those paperwork that you see, that normally comes from the mortgage companies.
Yes. Uh-huh.
Because you have your closing cost, and then you have the cost for title closing as well. So, but the majority of that documentation is coming from the mortgage company because they'll send it over to us as we are the ones that will do the closing. So we want to make sure that the right person is sitting in front of us, to minimize any risk or any fraud. So we are like risk managers
Right.
in a sense.
Right.
And then we make sure that all parties agree money is in escrow. Once documents are signed, things get recorded timely. And then the insurance and all of that other stuff is issued, and the parties exchange the property.
Wow. It's a big deal to me. Maybe it's just, I don't know if it's just to me, but it's a it's I think it's a big deal. I think I get so proud when someone tells me they purchased a home, because I know it took a lot to do that. Usually, I'll say that usually it wasn't an easy thing to do, is what I'm saying.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is a big deal, because 90% of generational wealth is built through home ownership.
Wow.
So I always tell homeowners, I'm like, listen, you're not just a homeowner, you're an investor. You just have one property, but you're an investor.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and especially I tell people we live in California. I said that's like owning gold in a gold mine in California, because it's gone so, I don't hate to say crazy, but um it's just gone up. I'll say that. I'll put, like, years ago my parents bought a home in San Diego and they paid under 20,000 for it. Just the thought of that. Years later, I talked to my mother, and she literally begged me not to sign the papers for a home. And I said, Mom, they don't have $20,000 homes anymore. I did. I was like, that's our down payment. She said, and she was, oh, don't sign that paper. I mean, she was adamant. And she said, I can't sleep if you sign that paper. I kept thinking, you can't sleep. But at the same time, before she passed, the two of us had a conversation, and she said, Mary, thank you for not listening to me. And I told her, I said, Mom, I recognize your fears, but I also recognize with the world you lived in, that's not my world. The world that lets you buy a home for $20,000. But this was years. I mean, I was like 12 when they did that. So that world did not exist anymore. And now the homes are over 100,000. And she couldn't handle it. She literally was like, don't do it. Please don't sign. But before she passed, she said, thank you for not listening to me. So yeah, it all worked out. But I look back, I told her I just knew it, but I couldn't listen to you knowing what I knew. It's just what it was. But I still want to thank you for what you do. What misconceptions do people have about probate, title work, or property ownership?
Well, with probate, they think it's an option, and it actually isn't. It's a part of the laws of the land.
Mm-hmm.
Probate is a painful process to go through, especially if you don't have any order. So that's one misconception on probate. Title work, again, that is optional. It is, but it isn't.
I was going to say, it is what it
Again,
is. Mm-hmm.
yeah, because again, go ahead and buy a property and not do the research on it, and you can inherit a whole mess.
A headache.
Right?
A headache.
Yep. And in regards to property,
Mm-hmm.
people think that once they pay off their home, that that's it, that they don't have to make any more payments. But you do. You have to pay your taxes.
You
So
do.
you actually own the fixture, but not the land itself. You will always have to pay taxes.
Right.
If you
That's
don't, then they'll take your home.
so that's where they say death and taxes are will always be there. Those they're not going anywhere.
Nowhere.
I tell you now, and I'm gonna for those of you that are not you've never experienced probate, I call probate the devil. That's what I call it. And I'm gonna tell you why, because probate is family, usually it's family against family. That's why I call it the devil. And I call it the devil because I've lived probate, I've gone through it, and it has been a nightmare. Let me say that too. That's what so those of you, and this is what I didn't know all this. Let me just explain this to the audience. I never knew, I'd never been through probate. So I didn't know what probate, I've heard the term, I've heard the word, but I really didn't know what it was. Let me say that. And I didn't know what it costs either. I didn't know, and I thought when I heard my mother said she had a will, I thought that was it. Oh, she has a will, that's it. I didn't know that a will must be probated. So I'm sure there's somebody in the audience that doesn't know that either. These are the things I learned through experience. It does have to be probated. You may or may not have to have a lawyer. They will encourage you to have a lawyer. Let me say that. So what does that mean? That means that now you have to pay the male, whoever that man or woman is. They're gonna have to get paid. They can get paid out of the proceeds if there's proceeds, and there may or may not be proceeds. There's so many. There's no, and you probably can help me with this, Stephanie. There's no two cases alike.
That is correct. Debt. People think debt is all about purchasing a home, keep that debt to income ratio low enough so you can purchase and also that you can continue to live, right? They don't want you to be house poor.
Right.
But it also affects you when you pass away, because
Yeah.
if you have too much debt, there is a strong possibility that you may have to sell off or liquidate items to pay off the estate as
Yeah.
well.
This is what I say for having gone through it. You're literally dismantling someone's life. You are taking from the time they pass. You got, well, I'm gonna speak for, you have the funeral costs, and some people may or may not have insurance. My mother had insurance, thank God. But I will tell you, I talked to many people. They had no insurance. And then I've had people where the person said they had insurance, they couldn't find the insurance. It's been, I mean, the stories go on and on and on. But I would tell you, probate means you're dismantling. That's what I call it. That's not the legal term, someone's life. Because if they own property, that's going to be, and then I know a case where the gentleman owned, was it 15 properties? Believe it or not, no will, no nothing, and passed away. I'm just like, the thought of that, because the property doesn't stop. The mortgages don't stop if that person passes away, and that mortgage is still due, ladies and gentlemen. It doesn't go away. People think it does, but and you can. I don't know if you can lose it if it's in probate. Now you have to help me with that, Stephanie. I don't know. If you own a property and the mortgage is still due, and now that property is in court in probate, do they pause the mortgage? I don't know.
Yeah, that's something that the attorney will handle.
Okay.
When I tell people who are up in the air, if they are not quite sure that they want to do probate just yet,
Right.
then I say, listen, this isn't legal advice, but you can continue to pay the mortgage until you make up your mind, because they're not concerned about who's paying the mortgage as long as it's being paid.
Okay.
So you don't lose or get behind on the payments.
And well, some people have their everything, their taxes and everything escrow, which means it's in the mortgage payment. I have met people who don't have that. So every quarter they have to pay their taxes. And I tell them I can't function like that. I need to let's just pay that payment and that's the end of it. But everybody's different, I would tell you. And so you have to make sure, ladies and gentlemen, if you were the ones that have to make these payments, number one, I would tell you, keep good records. keep records of everything you're doing, because if you show up in that courtroom and you can't prove that you did X, Y, and Z, it's like you didn't even do it. So I would encourage you, if you made a payment, if you fixed a faucet or fixed a toilet in that property, whatever it is, the proceeds, you will get reimbursed if you have the receipts for it. And I'm gonna be honest, I had to keep lights on. Me and my husband, the lights were on, the water was on because we had to keep the grass watered, so that had to stay on. We had to pay that. We kept the lights on because if the house is too dark at night, it lends itself to people breaking in. And that was just to keep the porch light on. Think about that. I know who would think about these things? I'm just, but it's real, because if people don't see anybody moving around, next thing you know, they're gonna break in, and now you have another whole set of problems. So I would encourage you, whatever the case, whatever you need. I can't tell anybody what to do. I can tell you what we did. We did hire an attorney to walk us through this, because neither one of us had been through it before, and we didn't have a clue what to do, where to start. Even though I had some people tell me, "Oh, you could have did that yourself," and I was sitting there thinking, I don't know. I'm thinking maybe I could have, but I think it's too emotional. I think we're dealing with my mother's estate. I think it was too emotional for us to do it ourselves, so we hired someone. I'm looking at thinking back to this. I would tell anybody, if you can afford to do it, and not only that, if you're the executor, that will come out of the proceeds also. Your attorney's fees, let me say that. They're coming out of the proceeds. If there's proceeds. I've seen situations where there's no proceeds.
I've seen that as well, too. And individuals were upset. But I had to explain to them, why there were no proceeds left. So it's important to have these conversations now. Yeah. So everyone is on the same page. They understand your thought process. Yeah. They can have their questions answered now, because it's nothing more than to pass away and people have questions, and they can't be answered, and they still have to be here for their family, right? But their mind is rented with all of these thoughts and what ifs and why did they do this, that, and the third. So it's important to have these questions now while you're alive and in sound mind to do so.
I wonder, this is what I have found. Not everyone, but I have found more so in African-American communities, we don't talk about death. But in our counterparts, Caucasian communities, they not only talk about it, they sit down and have business meetings about what's going to happen if so-and-so passes away. And don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to say everybody does this, but I'm going to use this as an example. I wrote a book, and it's called Save Your Home for Probate. And it's about, and I know you're probably familiar with the transfer on death deed. I think Florida has it, the transfer on death deed.
Yes.
It's
called the Ladybird deed here, but yes.
Okay. Ladybird, it's called Ladybird there. In Texas is Ladybird, and Michigan is Ladybird in those states. But in other states, same thing, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. It's called either Ladybird deed or transfer on death deed. It's the same paper. Now, for that sheet of paper, I think in Florida, you can do it for probably less than $100. You fill it out, you attach your, you fill it out, you get it notarized. It's a form, and you attach it to your deed. And what that paper does is, now when the person passes away, that property will go to the person or the persons on the paper, but you do not go to court and go to probate. Now, for California, it's about $125 to get it done. Florida, I think it's less than $100. They went up in California on ours.
Yeah, it's a little bit more than $100 here as well.
Oh, okay. But it's still, this is what I've had people use it. I've talked to attorneys who have said to me, who told you about this? Because you saved that person thousands of dollars. I tried to tell everybody I know about this, if you own property, because, and now I've learned too, now they have made changes in California. You have to have it notarized by two people who will not get the property. Neither one of those people can be the people to receive the property. which is fine, that's fine, well and good as far as I'm concerned. But but now, because of fraud, that's why you have to have two witnesses, and then you attach it. That's the only difference they've made in California, is that two witnesses. At first, you could do it with, you could just get it notarized, and that was it. Now they changed it, so now you have to sign it, and the two witnesses sign it, and now you attach it to your deed. So when the person passes away, it goes to whoever they left it to. I have encouraged people, don't leave it to more than two people. That's, if I be honest, I don't want to say leave it to one person, but I'm just saying, the more people you leave it to, they're going to fight. That's all I'm going to say. Because you leave it to a lot of people, somebody wants to sell it and somebody wants to keep it. And it ends up being a fight. That's just how it is. Or you can leave it to one, if I understand it correctly, and you put it in your will that it has to be sold. You can do that too. That's another way you can do it. But the point being, I'm not a lawyer. Let me preface this. I always have to say that I am not a lawyer. So
yeah, that disclaimer.
I got to do that disclaimer, since I've been to law school, but I didn't get the law degree, but I went to, but I did community property. I can tell you that's why. And the professor said, you can say anything you want to say, but you better tell people you're not a lawyer. And so I'm not a lawyer, ladies and gentlemen, but I've learned a lot. So what I'm saying is for informational purposes only. Go get legal advice. Go pay, speak to an attorney. I'm gonna say, and even I'm thinking, and with Stephanie's background, we know a lot. Don't get me wrong, we know a lot, but we're not gonna sit here and say we have law licenses that we're giving you information that you can take to the bank. Or no, we're not. That's not who we are. But I will gladly tell you about the transfer. The book is on Amazon. It has 5 stars. People love that book because I have a California version of it, and I have one for all the states, which means that, and there's some new ones came on. I got to double check this. Some new ones haven't come on, but I have just the California version alone. I've gotten so many comments of thank you for this, because you can do your property, or you can do, let's say you have 4 units on a property, you can do that, and you can leave it to somebody, and you can avoid probate. I think that's the best thing in the world. So. But anyway, Stephanie, you also work with out-of-state and international heirs. How did you recognize the need to serve for such a unique group?
Well, I'm an heirs property owner myself.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. And it's in another state. So I felt their pain in doing that. And I said, you know what? Let me be there for these people. Let me be the light on their ankle, right? In the state of Florida, to help guide them through this process.
Right.
Because, Florida law is something else. It's a beast of its own. So if you're in another state, most people, if you have a property, let's say the person lives here.
Right.
And, or let's do it this way. So let's say they live in California, but they own property here in Florida, that right. You would have to probate in both places. Wow. California, because that's where they reside. That's their domicile. And then here in Florida, because this is where the property is located.
Wow.
So once, they think once it's done in California, that's it.
No.
And no, it's called a ancillary probate that you would do where the property is located. So you would have to, submit your documents from your California probate, along here with Florida. Florida has its nuances. Right. The judge will look at both of the documents to ensure, from California and here in Florida, make sure everything is in alignment and that the laws are in alignment. And then, they will disperse the proceeds accordingly. There's a lot of little things in there, but that's just a high overview of what that looks like. So because I know it's hard to maintain a property that you don't live in, right, mm-hmm. or even vacant land,
right,
that it's great to have someone that can be boots on the ground and be your eyes and ears for you. So if that's what we do here in Florida.
I can't imagine that. We had to, but well, I don't know why I'm saying that. We had to have two attorneys also because we had a property in Mississippi and another property in California. That's two separate attorneys. That's two separate bills. It's two separate. It was like, when I tell you it was a nightmare, I don't even know how to tell you it was a nightmare, but it was, and I've lived it. This is not what she's telling you, ladies and gentlemen, is the gospel truth here. This is, if you don't get it straight while people are living, you're gonna wish you had when they pass away. I'm just gonna be honest. You will want to get it straight. I'm just gonna be get it straight. Ask them what's going on. You need to get it all in writing. You need to, and the best way, and I don't know if you would agree with me at this, is a living trust.
It all depends on the individual and their needs.
Okay.
I'm not an attorney, but I always tell people that it all depends on the individual needs. So let's say, a person that's just starting out and, maybe live in an apartment and don't have a bank account.
Okay.
And let's say, and then let's say you're a person and you have 15 properties.
Right.
You have a blended family.
Oh, that's a whole nother reality.
So again, it's pretty much surrounded off of, the dynamics of your family, of what you would, which vehicle you would use to secure your property.
I actually know a couple, they've been together for years, but they're not married because of the fact, truthfully, the kids don't want the mother to marry because she owns 10 properties. And because if she marries, it can get convoluted with the husband, even though they've been together over 10 years. And they want their properties, basically. They don't want to have to fight the other kids for anything. And so as long as she's not married to them, then it all goes to them.
So, each state, again, they have their nuances. But I would, always suggest to have, as we said, not just so much in writing, but on the proper legal documents. Yes. So it can speak for you, right? So that's what these documents are. They're your mouthpiece when you're no longer here to speak. So I tell them it's like a genie. It'll come alive and speak your truth, because it's whatever you put in those documents that you want to occur, right?
Do they accept video when the person passes? Do they have to, if the person did a video, what they want, would judge accept that or no? I don't know.
I'm not sure because I haven't had one of those yet.
Okay. Well, what they do with AI probably is no. Because they can do so much with AI and make it look like that person's saying stuff. It's just like, I don't know. I'm thinking no. But anyway, we want to say hi to our audience. Hello, everybody. And this is Antonio says, hi, Sister Stephanie. Nice to meet you. Would love to connect with you.
Oh, nice to meet you as well.
Super fan Antonio. Hi, Antonio. And there's Waivani. Waivani's a super fan too.
Hey, hi. How are you?
Hello, Waivani. She is senior publisher of a magazine. Excellent. Hi, Waivani. And then we have, this is Miss Kendall, 2011. We put our home in a trust to avoid probate. All right. Okay.
And that's something too. People create, these trusts and they forget to fund them. So you have to put something in them. I have seen that where people have, took the time to create the, documents and whatnot, but they did not actually, fund them. So yeah, that's something that is very important to do.
Now, what does that mean, fund them? That means put
put your house in it, put whatever, you have to start, putting whatever you want in there to be protected, not just have the document. So. Got
it. And I'm gonna be honest, I was one of those people. Years ago, I had the trust. Now, I don't know what trust costs these days. At that time, it was $1,500. And the attorney, I'll never forget this. He said it's $1,000 every time you change the trust. I'm like, what? And he said, and I know why now, and that's to keep people from changing it. That's all it is. You're not gonna keep worrying me. I'm gonna charge you $100,000 every time you. I never changed it, by the way. But I also never put the property in there. Think about that.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even know what to do. It took me years to figure out this whole thing out, but I finally did. But now I'm remarried and we have to do everything over, all that kind of stuff. It was a reality check. I'll say that much. But anyway, but I did not put the house in the trust, and I paid him all that money. The only thing that was in there was, I think, the bank account was in there, and that's it. He said, "Hey, Ivani, nice to see you, Ivani." And then Miss Kendall, let's see. Hello, Miss Kendall.
Yes.
A blended family.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we know all of there's reasons. But then I talked to, unfortunately, a lot of people, not a lot. I won't say this. I personally know at least 5. They're single, own property, no will, no nothing. I have actually had one gentleman say this to me. I want him to fight over it. He actually said those words to me. And I told him that was cruel for him to even say something like that. But he said it. He said, I want them to fight over it. I said, that's wrong. That's just wrong. And this is our executive producer. Oh, Oliver. Hi, Oliver. This is my husband.
Oh, how are you?
He said, hi, Stephanie. Welcome and thank you for joining the show. Your knowledge and expertise on this topic is appreciated for the viewers. I tell our executive producer.
Hello. All right. Thank you. Thank you.
So I'm just really, because I'm listening to you too. Because even though, I mean, our generation above me, my mom's generation, they've all passed away. So yes. I tell somebody, we're the next generation up. My generation is the
right. Right. Absolutely.
Well, we know enough that we should not put our kids, in my opinion, through this. But just because I'm saying that doesn't mean people are going to do the things that, as I mentioned before, I know people that are single. I know the one lady I'm thinking of, she's a widow. She owns. They're all paid for 10 properties in San Diego.
Yeah.
No will, no nothing.
So
you see, I get quiet because
yes.
I don't know what to say to get her to do something. But and all the will really does is tell a judge your wishes. That's what it does.
It does, but it's even beyond that, right? It's you're taking the time to get up every morning to store upon this land these items, right?
Yes.
But if you don't have a plan, do you know who can become your silent beneficiary?
The state.
It's your state. So I can understand the time, like when my dad was born and things of that nature, right? Back, you had that emancipation period where, after that we could own land, but we did not have access to, legal services and to wills and trusts and things of that nature. I understand the system working back then, right?
Right.
But the system should not be working right now. We have too much information in order to make an informed decision.
That's right.
So right now, if we're just accumulating all of this wealth, right, and we have a full-blown family, and we do not have a will, it leaves so much chaos. And then the state sneaks in with all of their taxes, inheritance tax and all this, that, and the third, till you dwindle down to nothing, pretty much, right?
It's true.
So I'm not getting biblical here, but how are we supposed to leave things for our children's children? Right. It's beyond us. It's the future, right? There's no need for them to start at zero. It's not about hoarding all your wealth for you here and now. It's about making placement of things for the next generation and make it easier.
Right.
And just like you said, the other counterparts, yes, they talked about it at the table. They even have succession plans for their businesses.
Yeah.
You know, the African American business right now does not supersede the second generation. Because again, a succession plan, there isn't one, which is it's a estate plan, but for
Right.
your business. So again, we're putting in all of this energy to
Yeah.
do these things, but you know, once you leave, then it all crumbles. So you're building your house or your life on sand and not rock.
On sinking sand is what it is. It's like, because generational, and really, and teaching them how to maintain it.
Absolutely.
Know what
Teaching the next generation, that's right, how to maintain and keep it going, right? Because that's what you want to do. Is it should be a well-oiled machine, right? And just to keep it going, each generation giving the next person the leg up and the leg up. So that's the reason why I go out into the community, or you'll see me on LinkedIn and I talk about certain things, and on Facebook, on a global level, trying to reach that generation where they grew up in a household, right, where they didn't have those talks at the dinner table.
Right.
So, of course, it's foreign, right? What is probate? Why is this so important?
I didn't know.
This is my mom's house, so it's automatically, my house. No, there's nothing automatic.
Doing this lately.
Inheritance.
Anyway.
Inheritance is not automatic.
Well, conversations. I didn't. And I'd look back, like as I mentioned, I didn't even know. I had heard the word probate. That's what I knew the word. I had no clue what it really meant. I'm speaking for me, and somebody else may be in that same position. They don't really, kind of, sort of, or you may know somebody else has gone through it, but you don't really know what it means to avoid it, or why should you avoid it. What is it?
Absolutely.
I keep hearing this is what I've heard. Probate is so the lawyers can get rich. That's what I've heard. That's who benefits by probate, the attorneys. So if you want to pay an attorney, because that's, somebody's got it, either. But I have heard, the one lady told me, I did my own probate. I said, that's good. But she said it was a small estate. It wasn't a large estate, those kind of thing. I'm listening to her thinking, I'm glad I didn't have it in me.
So because in the state of Florida, if you have your formal estate and you have your summary administrations. So if you have a formal, that means that the estate is over $75,000, and you are required to have an attorney. And at which time, most likely, you will have to assemble, a team. Your appraiser, your realtor, your title agent. Once you go through that process, and then you have your small estates where you're just looking for reimbursement for funeral or medical bills, that don't require a personal representative or anything like that. But when you're going through probate, you have to keep in mind too that things are frozen until things get taken care of. So it is very important to make sure that you update your beneficiaries on your policies, meaning like your life insurance policies, your IRAs. If someone has passed away, one of your beneficiaries, update that. If you don't have a payable upon death on your bank account, it's recommended you have one of those, because if not, then the bank account get frozen and you can't do anything in there. If there's no additional person's name on there, if it's just a solo person. So there's a lot of things that occur that will be out of your reach, because we didn't do our job as prudent individuals. So it's not just about being born, having kids, and that's it. No, it's not about accumulation. The biggest thing is the protection. Will the protection cost you? Absolutely. I think it costs more than the accumulation. But if you don't do it, then, right now, just know the state is just silently waiting for you not to do your job, and they'll step in and do it for you. And they have no feelings. It's not about feelings, it's the state laws at that point. So if you had your child wanting to go to someone, and if they don't, qualify by the standards of the law, then they may not be that person,
And
so there's a lot. You leave a lot up in the air to the judge, a person that doesn't even know your family dynamics or anything like that. So,
and you know what? And they don't care. They don't care. They're gonna go by the law first.
The law.
And and that could mean it could go to somebody you didn't even want to go to.
That's right. It invites lineage, right? It can go even further down depending on the family dynamic. So it invites a lot of other family members to the table.
Wow. Well, I see a comment here from, you may know this lady, Nikki Curry.
Hey, Miss Nikki.
How are you, Nikki? She's coming back for part 2. Nikki will be
awesome.
I know. I said you have to come back, but she's coming back for part 2. So good to see you, Nikki.
Absolutely.
So I would tell, I'm listening to you because I was like, I pray I never have to go through this again. but I'll tell you the truth. I am glad I went through it. Seriously, because now I can tell I'm a witness now. Nobody has to tell me about it. Nobody has to give me, I don't have to get it, secondhand. I know what probate is all about now. And then you mentioned that about the bank account. My mom had put me on the bank account, and all I had to do was bring in her death certificate. And the lady, she took me in this room and she said, "You're the only one on the account." And I said, "Well, thank you." And she, they put the check, wrote me off check and everything. And she said, "Everything in that account belongs to you. Now, if you decide to distribute it, that's your choice, but you legally have no right to do that. You have no responsibility to do that." And she told me the day before a family came in, it was millions of dollars in his bank account. And the grandfather left it to one granddaughter. That was it. He didn't put anybody's, and he wrote the check out. And she said it was like 12 people in the little room because everybody thought they were going to, I guess their name was on it. And she told all of them, she said, "I'm sorry, but there's only one name on the account. So everybody else has to step out of the room." She didn't even let them see what the amount was or anything. And I thought, wow, she would just it was interesting to hear these different scenarios about what's. So we're saying this, ladies and gentlemen, if you don't have a name on the account for 30 days, you have to wait. Let me say this to all of you. This is law, by the way. It's not me just making this up. Well, as I said before, I'm not an attorney, but check with your
disclaimer out there.
You saw check with your attorney. But anyway, you cannot just go into someone's bank account. That's the best way to say it. It doesn't matter. It's just, as far as they're concerned, the owner is still living. They're protecting their money from you is what they're doing. That's really what it is. So don't just automatically assume, well, I'm going to bring the death certificate in. It doesn't work like that. They had to have left a name. This is totally free. Totally free. All you have to do is say, this is, if anything happens to me, this is who I would like to get the money in this bank account.
Yeah. And they can't access it until you pass away.
Correct.
So, yeah.
They can't take it from you. They're not going to be able to withdraw anything. It doesn't work like that. Hi, Elaine. Elaine's a super fan too. Hi, Elaine. She said, "Hello, Mary, Miss Hopkins. Unfortunately, I had to miss most of the podcast today. Other obligations today. I will definitely be doing the replay. Impactful information." Elaine, tell me about this stuff. This is real stuff. This, if people only knew, we're helping you guys from a lot of pain. Am I right, Stephanie?
Oh, absolutely. I see it all the time. And what I can tell you is crisis will definitely show someone's character. So you want to make sure that you have a level-headed individual going through this process. It's challenging to go through probate and you're grieving at the same token and you're unaware of the process. That's what I found out that most people are angry about, is they don't understand the process.
Right.
And that's not the time to learn about it. And being in court is not the time to have family therapy either.
Yeah.
We need to become unified and get through the process, because if not, then you're being, in this courtroom months in, and money is just getting eat up in legal fees. So yes.
I wouldn't wish that on anyone, truthfully. I would never have wanted to have gone through it.
But if you have order, it's okay. Just like with anything, if you have order, everyone knows, beforehand, right?
Right.
What this is going to look like, all planned out, then people are most likely cordial. I like those.
You say you like
But then,
those?
I have the ones that aren't, and they get to the table and they're reluctant to, sign the document because they have unresolved issues.
I think it goes back to childhood, is what I think. I think it's sibling stuff that has probably nothing to do with what you're faced with. But like you said, unresolved issues, unresolved stuff is what I call it. But if I would highly recommend you see someone before you, if especially I'm saying older than I am, obviously, but I'm just saying if they haven't done anything in their own property, encourage them to speak to an attorney. Encourage them to, and let them know that what they're doing, if they don't do anything, is setting the family up to fight.
Well, doing nothing is doing something.
It is.
So, I love my family, but you're not protecting them.
No.
And I'm not knocking anyone. I want to have the good life too, vacation and stuff. Right. But some people are like, well, I can't afford an estate plan. But you have some expensive items or taken some expensive trips. That right there, sometimes you've paid for an estate plan 3 or 4 times.
At least. It's not, right? It's not their priority.
Right. It's almost like it's a pleasure, right? It's not a pleasure, it's a requirement. It's a lot of pain that is attached to that. And to be able to explain that and to help families through, right? So they don't do it again.
Yeah.
That's what I do for the most part, is to be that person for them, that guiding light, to give them clarity, to make the pill go down a little bit.
Yeah.
Smoother.
I'm sure you'll never be without clients, because no matter how much you and I tried, I'd say I tried. Well, let me give you an example. I told a Caucasian lady about the transfer on death deed. When I tell you, the lady went that day, that very day that I mentioned her that morning. That day, she had went down to the county. She had got the form, or she went online, got the form, filled it out, had it notarized, filed it. It was in file the next day. I don't know how many African American people I've told. I only know of one person that did it, that I know of. I'm not saying other people haven't done it, but when she called me the next day and told me she had filed that paper, I couldn't believe it. I could not believe. She said, I've been looking for something like this because my husband will not get a trust. He wouldn't do it. Home is paid for. It was in his name. He had been married before, he was widowed, and now she's there. And she knew if something happens to him, the kids were going to come for it. And he had already told her he wanted her to have it. It's all true story. But there was no paperwork. There was nothing for that to happen. And now she said, you have no idea. I can sleep good at night knowing this is done now.
Absolutely. Everything has to be in writing on legal document. I just can't stress that enough. There's long gone the days of putting it in Bibles and things like that. That's not how the world works right now. And this game of life is not in your favor.
That's a good one. That's a good one. It's not, because if you don't take care of your business, what you're saying, the state will take care of it for you. And you don't want that to happen, ladies. You're basically giving the state your legacy. That's what you're doing. You're just saying, here, I didn't have enough time to do it. Here, you do it. That's not good.
Yeah, yeah. And they, like I said, they follow the rules. There's even a little chart that they go by as well. So,
it's not good. Well, I'll tell you this. I'm saying, I know we're down to the last few minutes. I want to ask you, what words would you like to give our audience so they understand the importance of this? It's so important. We can't stress it enough. I don't think you and I can. But what words would you give them? Encouraging words.
You spend your money on what you value, right? So if you value your family, then you will protect them by any means. And if that is an estate plan, whatever vehicle, that your family qualifies for, right? If they want to do a will, do that. If you have a trust, do that. But protect your family. Because if I was to give you a microphone right now and your heart could talk, what would it say to your family?
Wow. Oh my goodness, that's a good one. That is a good. Thank you, because I know. Let's say this: even if you don't own property, whatever it is you want someone to have when you pass away, you need to put it in writing, and they should know. Don't keep these things a secret, and then all of a sudden, because I'm just gonna be honest, I have heard people say about a teacup. I've heard it. I've heard them say it. Grandma said that teacup belongs. I've heard these words, people. So this is not a joke. And they have went to court fighting over things like that. They fight over animals, over pets. This is for real stuff here. But you don't want to be one of those people. What we're trying to do here is say, don't be one of those people because someone didn't take the time. Encourage them now while they're living and breathing and well. And this, I've heard this too. And you may have heard this also, Stephanie. Oh, I'm I have power of attorney. I've heard people say the person is dead now. And they're telling me
power
that
of attorney died when they died. It's null and void at this point.
They don't know.
And I'm gonna say this one more thing too, Miss Mary. There are statistics out there that says by 2044 that this will be a minority nation. But at the same token, there are statistics out there that say by 2053, African-American wealth may dwindle to zero. That's how important it is.
Woo, that's deep.
That's how important it is. And I know I've had people to tell me, well, Stephanie, those are just statistics. And I say, well, who do you think made the statistics? The same person who caused the problem. So don't you think they'll know?
Yeah. Because I think they're called, is it actuaries for insurance companies? And
there's actuarials, but these are from the actual government statistics.
They know.
Yeah.
There are people, they study this. This is what they do. They know our lifestyles. They know more about us than we know about us.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
So people don't know, but I want to tell you, thank you for coming today, Stephanie. I'm sitting here and because I know, as I say, I done been through, so I know what I'm talking about. And I would not wish this on anybody. So thank you for your information. And please come back again. Please come back.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. So ladies and gentlemen, that's our show for today. But I want to tell each and every one of you that thank you for being here. Stephanie is outstanding. All of this information, I tell you, it's so, and what can I say? It's affected me. I'd be lying if I told you guys it hasn't affected me. It will probably the rest of my life. Because every single time I can tell anybody about transfer on death deeds, to avoid probate, get a living trust, I'll be telling it because this is what people don't know or may not know. Transfer on death deed, they cannot touch the property. They cannot sell it. Their name, they cannot do anything until you pass away. Let me add that, because sometimes people think they have to put somebody on title and you don't. And I know I'm looking at the clock. I do have to go, ladies and gentlemen. God bless each and every one of you. We will see you next Monday. Bye, everybody. Oops.